In a recent conversation I had with a fellow student over at Liberty University, we're taking the class of Daniel, and he asked me about the evil that's in the world. Him being a dispensationalist, he presupposes the rapture, 7-year tribulation, and the classic dispensational line. However, me being a postmillennialist, I believe that the world will be Christianized per the Great Commission, Matthew 28. Well, in regards to that issue, he asked this question: can God permit such heinous acts? Speaking of the evil that we were speaking of. I responded that yes, not only do I believe that he permits these evil acts, but being Reformed, I also believe he's ordained these evil acts. Point in fact, even the Arminian finds themselves in the same predicament in regards to this point. If God created ex nihilo and nothing outside of him forced him to create, then he has necessarily ordained all that will come to pass. Meaning, if God is omniscient and foreknows event X prior to creating X, and God foreknows perfectly that event X will result in A, B, and C, all being evil acts, and he decides to create and bring about X with subcategories A, B, and C, then God has ordained that act. Why? Because it could have never come about without the sovereign decree and creative act of God himself. A, B, and C must come from X, because it's already had an effect. It has affected the foreknowledge of God. It's already had an effect. It's affected the foreknowledge of God himself. This means that what will come to pass must come to pass, and the future is not contingent. If God foreknows X perfectly before creation, he creates knowing that X will have certain effect, and he creates nothing outside of him, made him create. He did it of his sovereign will, and God has brought about events A, B, and C, even if they're evil acts. So yes, in either the Calvinistic system or the Arminian system, this same paradigm exists. Unless somebody wants to be an open theist and deny the foreknowledge of God, then they have to understand that the future is not contingent. In the Arminian system, they seem to want to believe that the future is contingent and God has perfect foreknowledge. But you cannot hold to both of those premises. You either have to have one or the other. If you say the future is contingent, you're not an Arminian, you're an open theist. You're denying the foreknowledge of God. If you say that if you're going to hold to the premise of God's perfect foreknowledge, then you also have to understand that, as the Arminian is very prone to say, that all people can be saved. Well, is that true? If God perfectly knows prior to creation that Joe is not going to come to him, and he perfectly knows it due to his foreknowledge, even in the Arminian system, when God creates Joe and Joe lives out his life, there is no way he will be able to come to Christ, because God has already perfectly foreknown that he won't. Now, if the Arminian wishes to claim all who call upon the name of Jesus Christ can be saved, Calvinist has no problem with that, because that's exactly what we claim also. So, you either have to hold to the one premise of foreknowledge or declare open theism. One last example. If God foreknew the position of 500 pennies that he creates prior to creation, and he perfectly foreknows where they're going to land, where they're going to be seated at a specific moment in time, and he creates nothing outside of himself, remember, has forced him to create. He creates those pennies, then at that perfect moment in time, those pennies must be in the proper position that God foreknew, because his foreknowledge is perfect. Therefore, when we talk about X resulting in A, B, and C, all evil acts, then those evil acts must come about, and they could not have come about without God's sovereign decree in creation. Thanks for watching.